I don't want to live in the city. People aren't that nice. I don't want to live in the country. It's too slow. Hey everyone, this is Matt Swierk and I'm with
Yun Swierk.
And we're local real estate experts right here in Massachusetts with the Legacy Star team powered by Keller Williams Realty. Now, if this is the first time you come to our channel, welcome. We're super excited. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, click that little bell so every time we make a new video, you're going to get notified. Right, so this channel is all about Massachusetts, eating, sleeping, drinking, playing, what it's like to live in the suburbs, what it's like to live in the city. You have questions, we have answers. Go ahead, reach out to us. Call us, text us, email, doesn't matter. You reach out to us, we'll get back to you. When it comes to Massachusetts, we've always got your back. All right, so today is a brand new video, and of course it's a new video because you clicked that button and you got notified, right? But it's a new video. Why? Look at this. I have someone with me. Holy moly. This is my wife, Yun Swierk. Say hi, Yun.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, she's the one I always talk about. She's the one that walked by a couple of the videos. And we thought it'd be great just to bring her in here. And we're definitely talking about what it's like to live in the city versus out in the suburbs. We've done both. We're going to dive right into it. You know, it's funny because Yun and I both have been exposed to the city. As you guys know, I grew up in Quincy. I think the big part of this whole video is going to be perception, right? Because I remember, if you look on the map, Quincy's here, and like 3 minutes over this way is another community, right? And traveling from one to the other, if it wasn't within 10 minutes, that was like Western Mass, and like, why would you go there? Right, so I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like take Framingham, right? Like look up Framingham, see what that is compared to Quincy. If you lived past Framingham, we were like, where are you going? Where are you going, right? Like our Western Mass folks, like I know you always think we forget about you, but like we love you, right? I loved you as a kid. I just didn't know you were out there. I just thought it was like, the edge of the world, and we're gonna fall off, right? So that perception is definitely. It's changed our views about everything, as far as living in the city versus living in the suburbs, right? Now, Yun, we used to travel quite a bit. We had a business that I think we were out of the house for, 14 to 15 hours a day?
About 15 hours a day.
15 hours a day, right? So it literally, I remember, we had these long commutes. Luckily, we're going against the traffic patterns, right? So if you want to talk, if you're coming here and you got a question about the traffic patterns, give us a call, right? But we were going against traffic patterns, so it wasn't really that bad. Except for those times when we had those snowstorms, right? And then maybe that turned into like a 3-hour one-way trip, right? And I remember white knuckles driving, and it was tough, right? So the thing that was interesting though is, and I hope you can remember this kind of interaction, right? So we lived in the city for a long time, and we loved it, right? And do you remember what the biggest draw to the city was? Why did we say like we have to stay in the city? What was it about?
Restaurants.
Restaurants.
Going out to eat.
It was all about the food. Like that's all that it was. And it was really funny because if you think about our schedule, because we used to leave, I would say like 5:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
6, whatever. It was early in the morning, right? So we would leave early. Our business would close at 7 o'clock, and then by the time we got back to our place in Rosendale, which is a part of Boston, that was another hour and a half, right? So realistically, we're getting home by like 9-ish. And yeah, when we were younger, right, and we didn't have kids, like we could go out to eat. But the idea we were like, listen, like maybe we want to move. Because this 3-hour commute, and we had a Jeep Cherokee at the time, so like the gas, and gas was expensive, back then. Never mind today at like $17 a gallon. So a lot of our savings was in the car. And we were like, maybe we should change. Maybe we should move out to the suburbs, right? And as a city kid, I was like, I'm not going to put the straw in my mouth and put this hat on. Like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be a hillbilly, right? No offense to the hillbillies. I love everybody, right? I'm a hillbilly. So we said, maybe we should move. And we said, we can't move. How are we going to eat? How are we going to eat? Right? And we said no. And for years and years, we hung on to those great restaurants.
He said no. Let's be honest.
All right,
he couldn't come back.
That's a whole nother story. We'll put that on some other video. You guys know we take tangents. Never mind when my wife is in the camera with me. Oh my gosh, like we'll go sideways on this big time, right? This will be called like Family Matters versus Massachusetts, wherever we are. But again, we make the channel, so if we want to start talking about weird things, we can. Anyway, I digress as usual. So yeah, it was about the restaurants and what Yun's talking about. I guess I'll bring that up is being a kid from the city. I was like, I don't want to move to the suburbs, right? Like, what are my friends gonna think about me like moving to the suburbs? And then she was like, come on, like, and she's like, Matt, what are we doing here? She's like, look at the bags under your eyes, like they're getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, I earned these, right? Like, it's okay. Like, we'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, we'll drive, and so I finally had to give in and say, all right, let me tell my friends, like, I'm gonna move out to the country. And oh my gosh, right? I just thought about a song that I'm not gonna start singing, so which we sing on the channel too. So I think that feeling of we have to be in the city because everything is right there and that's where all the action is, that really kept us there for a long time, right? And wouldn't you say, compared to the suburbs, like there was a lot going on when we had the time to be in the city?
Of course.
Right? Like
Amazing.
What were your favorite things about being so close to Boston?
Yeah, all the restaurants, the bars, going out, dancing. I love to dance. All of the social life shows, walking around the city, like just the Boston Common. I mean, there's so many beautiful. Castle Island, we would just pick up and walk on the Castle Island. I mean, how many times have we done that? So yeah, all of those little perks. But guess what? The suburbs have perks too, guys. It's all perspective.
So before we want to flip over that to, what the different advantages are, I think right away when Yun was talking about, like, we just went over to Castle Island, right? That's another area. I don't think we've identified that yet, Tyler, but maybe we slid it on one video, maybe
one,
not.
yeah.
There's so much to cover. It's hard to catch it all. So I think that, the accessibility, when you're in the city, it's so simple, right? And we've talked about how Boston is walkable to a degree. We have the T that, you can really get around pretty well as far as the trains, the buses. So it is really easy. Right now, if I want to jump to the city, like I'm either getting in the car, we're driving about 45 minutes to an hour. It depends on what the traffic looks like. It's a little drizzly right now, so people might forget how to drive. If we're going to take the train, we got to go over to one of the commuter rails. That's going to be probably 40 minutes just on the commuter rail, jump over to the red line, do another line. It gets confusing, but of course there's resources to help you with that. But being accessible, like of course with the city, it's all right at your fingertips, right? Now with the internet, everything in the suburbs at your fingertips as well, but you're not going to get it right away, right? So tell me, how has life changed being a suburban?
I love it. But I love every aspect of it, and I guess really it's the phase in our life. I mean, we decided to do it because we wanted to settle in our community of where our business was, and shortly thereafter we decided to have kids, and what a great place to raise, a family. And to be very honest with you, I love the city, but going back, I do not miss the city traffic for sure. Not at all.
All right, hold on. So listen, she's here on camera. She was the one that said, don't make that negative video about Massachusetts and why people shouldn't come here, right? All right, right here. Here she goes. She's very positive, my wife. Very blessed to have her, right? So I think that's the funny thing as far as some of those feelings, right? Like as far as traffic and what you grew up with, what you used to, that completely changes. Now, let's stop on personalities for a second. We lived in this community. Everyone was very, very friendly, right? If you knew people, they were friendly. If you didn't know people, they were friendly, yes. Right? And I remember when we moved out to that community Townsend, and one of our friends had stayed over, and I went to get gas, and I'm a friendly guy, and I was just saying hi to everybody. And he was like, wow, you haven't lived here that long, and you know everyone? And I said, no, like, this is just how it is. And he was like, I'm not going to talk to people randomly like that when I'm getting gas when I'm over, down in Boston. I was like, well, you could. He was like, Matt, they're going to give me, look, they're going to have daggers come in their eyes. Like, what are you talking to me for? Leave me alone. Right? So it's definitely, like all of a sudden we're not in the Midwest where that's a whole different environment. And I hear people like really friendly out there, right? And the Southern charm and all that stuff, right? Like we're charming here too. It's just in a different way. Remember, we're thick up front and then we open up and we're just full of love. So we're always full of love. So I think that is a little bit different of a mentality where it's just a little bit slower. There is more of that sense as far as community is concerned, and it is like that's your neighbor, right? And you're going to see them at your gas station. You're going to see them at your local Dunkin' Donuts. And so that's one thing. I had this great conversation this morning. We were talking about people helping each other. And I remember when we first moved to that community and people were saying, hey, do you need help with this? Do you need help with this? And I was like, no, we'll figure this out. We'll figure this out. Those people really wanted to help. And I finally, after getting like a hit over the head with a sledgehammer, I'm like, I should say yes. Like, they're offering to help me. And then once I did, it was amazing. Everyone helped, and I was able to help them, and it was just a really great experience. So I think it seems, a little more friendly out in these areas, right? People want to kind of stop and talk a little bit, right? Like, not too slow. No, you can't slow us down too much. We're quick, right? But we'll talk a little bit, right? We'll give it a little bit. The traffic, holy moly. That was another conversation. I forget who I was talking to. And they said, do you miss the traffic? And I said, it drives me crazy. I can't handle it at all, right? Like, put me on the train, I'm fine. But dealing with and what I love about living here in Massachusetts, right? And I've said this in other videos, it's mandatory to have insurance, right? So we just like to go out there and we can just go ahead and drive, because if we cause an accident, it doesn't matter. It's $300, right? No problem. Smash my car, bam, bam, here we go. It's not really like that, but it's the traffic. It can be a little maddening, right? Now, let's not say that we don't have traffic when you're dealing with the suburbs.
There's still traffic,
right? So like maybe getting a loaf of bread and getting your milk. Like if we have a snowstorm, if you come here, that's a really awesome phenomenon. Once people hear it's going to snow, then everyone panics and everyone rushes to the grocery store to get their milk and their bread and their water. Because God forbid you cannot leave your house for 5 minutes. You have to be able to have bread and water, right? And milk, right? There's no other food groups. We create very specific food groups for storms here in Massachusetts, and we survive, right? We're survivors. But there is a good deal of traffic. So when we're living in the city, we can jump on the train and we have our centralized areas. It's easy to get around that accessibility. However, like I was painting that picture, if we were going to drive somewhere right now, it's going to take a while. And we have to be very conscientious as far as those traffic patterns. Because as most places across the country, you miss that pattern by 5 minutes, you could be sitting in traffic for an extra half hour, right? And that's very, very typical here, and I would say about other big cities. So of course we have traffic. Again, it's that commuting in and out of the city. And again, you need to know what the patterns are, what the timing is, and then kind of shift from there, right? What else would you say some big differences as far as we'll say like living in the suburbs, because now we've become suburbians?
Well, one of the most amazing things about out here are the local farms and the local little stores. And I mean, we were living in an area where there were local farms and even people with honor systems where you could get fruits and vegetables, really. And there was a petty cash box. So you got, the fruits and vegetables you wanted and then left your cash. I mean, things like that, I don't see it happening in the city, which I think it is coming back around. I mean, I think Rosendale has their own community garden now. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing. But yes, there's a lot of more like just local fruit and local vegetables and local meat. What else?
Yeah.
Just a lot more arts and crafts, and I don't know if it's because we're just exposed to it in that local community, but yes, there's a lot more shop local, be local, and that whole feel of, helping out the community.
I think the crafts are probably everywhere. We have our little, the little craft fairs, but like you said, like the local meats, right? And like the local honeys and all those things. We were in a community where we paid, I think, like $500 for a couple months worth of food. It was a farm share, and like we got like a quarter share, and that was weird, right? They're like, yeah, come pick up your vegetables, and like we would just walk into this shack and pick up our stuff, and you don't get a choice of what it is. And I don't like beets, and we got lots of beets, and we made this awful vegetable soup from all the veggies we had. Like, it was a bad idea because we were just like, look at all these vegetables, we don't know what to do with them. But then we started talking about people that had farm animal shares, right? Where literally, like, they got a quarter of the cow, right? Now, we didn't do that because we don't have the freezer space for that, but I didn't have that exposure growing up in Quincy. I know out in here in Central Mass, like, you probably didn't have that either. So having those local resources, especially honey, like our kids have allergies, so local honey is a great way to go about that. And they say within like 1 mile, so all the bees are pollinated, right? And so like there's lots and lots of bees out here, and there's lots of honey and farms, right? So that's definitely a big difference. I think the air too, right? It's a little bit cleaner. It's absolutely quieter, right? Here's a funny thing: lots more insects. lots more insects, right? My sister-in-law lives in they're in the city environment, right? Our mosquitoes out here are like this big, and they have like these tiny little ones, and she's, you know, they put on my hockey equipment to stay protected from it. So, but lots of insects. Yeah, I remember we moved into our community, and they're like, listen, like the bugs own your house. Like once the sun goes down, it's their house until the morning. So we had to keep everything closed, but. I don't want to say things too negative about the suburbs, but that's a certain community, certain time of year. Mayflies, talk to me about that one. We'll have that conversation. So, yeah, I think the other thing might be, you know, with the city, maybe there was a little bit more opportunities as far as jobs was concerned, just because everything was centralized right there, right?
Yeah.
And some of the culture too. There was more culture, you know, in the downtown areas, and there was there. And I think just as society has changed as a whole, you're starting to see that in all these communities. So it doesn't matter where people live. They want culture. They want exposure. You know, they want to accept everyone for who they are and understand how we all operate and make this world go round. Right?
Yes. But another thing about the suburbs is also you just get more bang for the buck. So it's really understanding where you want to live with what you can afford. What is the best option for you with what you're looking for, right? Because realistically, like think about how much more house we were able to afford because we came into Townsend, right? And now we actually use that as a stepping stool, and we went into another town and now to another one. So depending on what your goal is and what you really want to focus on and what matters to you is really going to differentiate where you should be living.
Yeah, that's so true, and yeah, you know, I think most people know that concept of, you know, the closer you get to the city, the more expensive it is, right? Because of that accessibility. And I remember the first house that we bought. Again, growing up in Quincy, all the houses are on like half-acre lots, and we happened to buy this house that had 4 acres. And I remember talking to my buddy, and he was like, "You don't sound excited to buy this house." And I was like, "Well, who am I to have 4 acres?" I'm like, "Do you know how many houses we could be?" I'm like, "This is amazing." Like. It's not half acres, it's 4 acres. Now,
just so you know, Quincy's not half acres, it's like 0.1 acre.
Oh, come on. Come on. You always gotta hit the cue.
But yes, it's on top, so it's completely different. Half acre's a lot. We live in a half acre now, and think about how big that is.
Yeah. So we had 4 acres, and then we downsized to half an acre by that's just how it worked. But yeah, and again, those 4 acres, it wasn't like I had to cut all that grass. It was off in the trees and everything. But yeah, that was a different experience, right? Like actually saying I have 4 acres. You know, like I felt like I owned the world. Like, I have 4 acres. You know, there's some people that own 700 acres, right? But then there's someone that has like a quarter of an acre. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter, again, what is it that you want? What's going to satisfy your needs? But your bang for your buck, absolutely. And usually the school systems, you know, you probably get more, as far as public school system, you're going to get more, again, you're going to get more value out in the suburbs as opposed to the city, right? You can pay for private education. You get great private education in the city, but there's a lot of communities that really, and that's the other thing too. When people say I want to buy a house, and I say, all right, well, do you need the school system? Because maybe you don't have to pay those taxes. So it depends on what you want, right?
Absolutely. They're both great. It all depends on what phase of your life and what you're looking for.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong, right? It always goes back to what do you want? Jan always asks that question, what is it that you want, right? So if you want that city life, you can paint that picture of what that looks like, the hustle, the bustle, the noise, the excitement, right? Now I'm not going to paint the other picture, like, if you really want to just relax, take it. No, listen, like if you want to be out in the suburbs and you want more land, you want to get out there, do more stuff on your property, right? Be working the land, right? Then you want to come to the suburbs, completely different sets. That's our personal opinion. I think really where I am right now, I'm kind of in the blend. Like I love being in the suburbs because having that distance and having that sense of community. But I like being in the city too. Like that's my roots, and I love the madness and the lights and the excitement.
So I hope that you found this useful. That was just a little bit of pros and cons of living in the city versus living in the suburbs. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and listen, as always, if you're looking to move here, if you're looking to come here to rent, you want places to visit, it doesn't matter. You have questions, we have answers. Thank you so much for watching these videos. We have so much fun making it. Just remember, when it comes to Massachusetts, we've always got your back.